I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 different types of Capricorn. Born with the sun in Capricorn, the earth sign of Saturn, the party pooper, the bad guy, the boss. They're serious, stern, and stoic. Yuppies, useful and utilitarian. Cold, cruel, and callous. Busy bees, brown noses, and sometimes a bit of a bummer. So, what is Capricorn about? Well, let's use a comparison. When the sun is in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, you see this jolly red gift-dispensing mascot everywhere, Santa Claus. But once the sun enters Capricorn and the holiday season hangover begins, you start seeing cartoons of an old besithed Father Time handing it off to a baby representing the new year. The sun is in Capricorn as the year ends, and we celebrate New Year's, which is all about the passage of time. A reminder across the board of the inescapable fact that we're all getting older, closer to death, and time just marches on relentlessly. People reflect on the failures of the past year, and they make resolutions for the new one, which also fail. Rinse and repeat. And if this all sounds a bit grim, well, that's Saturn's speciality, and Saturn rules Capricorn. Saturn is about order, structure, tradition, hierarchy, caution. It's cold, it's hard, it's maturity, responsibility, adulting. So Capricorn is naturally a more conservative sign, not necessarily in a political sense, but just as a general personality trait. It's a bit of a glum, cynical sign, a bit lonely, but at the same time, Capricorns are known for their great ambition, scaling great heights by taking the slowest and surest path. For example, fans of the musical Hamilton might find it interesting that Lin-Manuel Miranda himself was born with the sun in Capricorn, just like Alexander Hamilton was in real life. And in the musical, Miranda emphasizes Hamilton's ambition and perseverance, which are very Capricornian traits, exemplified by the repeated lyric, "I am not throwing away my shot," except he says it kind of like, "I am not throwing away my shot! I am not throwing away my shot!" So, that was actually a pretty good Lin-Manuel Miranda impression. If you haven't heard it, then you wouldn't know, but it was actually pretty good. To it, anyway. Not every person with the sun in Capricorn is the same, so one way we can differentiate between different types is by considering what other planets aspect the sun in Capricorn. So today, we're just focusing on the conjunction aspect, which is where two celestial objects are close to the same degree in longitude. Different planets conjunct the sun in Capricorn equals a different type of Capricorn. Sun conjunct moon in Capricorn. The moon represents our emotions, our habits, our sense of home and belonging, our health. Capricorn, being a cold and lonely sign, isn't considered to be one of the best signs for the moon to find comfort in. Joel Zimmerman was born with the sun conjunct moon in Capricorn, and he's a world-renowned electronic musician, also known as Deadmau5, that guy who wears that mouse helmet mask thing. Now, while he's dedicated to creating the best he can for his fans, he's clearly happiest when he's being left the hell alone, finding his creative spark in solitude and isolation, which is pretty Saturnian. I found a quote of his where he says, "I haven't left this house in 2 weeks. I'm lucky. I only have to live out here with one other person." He's been known to suffer from depression, and while that isn't so specific to having the moon in Capricorn, it sort of explains the mouse helmet a little bit. Maybe it's his way of being able to kind of hide and keep people at a distance while still performing in front of thousands of people. Sun conjunct Mercury in Capricorn. Mercury is the thinker, the communicator, the writer. Edgar Allan Poe was born with the sun conjunct Mercury in Capricorn, and he's famous for writing stories that revolve around dark, sad, and macabre topics, death and grief. He basically invented the detective genre, so yeah, that's pretty Saturnian. He scrounged his way up from a broken, poverty-stricken childhood to become a professional writer, struggling his whole life for his ambition, which is, again, another kind of common theme for Capricorns. He also defined himself in opposition to the transcendentalists of his day, evoking the counter-revolutionary nature of Saturn. Side note, Lin-Manuel Miranda was also born with the sun conjunct Mercury in Capricorn, and he's a fantastic lyricist. He's really got a gift of the gab, a really wonderful ability to rap, and his rhymes are so clever, and, he's doing historical fiction, which is very Capricornian. His powers of speech are unimpeachable. Sun conjunct Venus in Capricorn. Venus is the planet of beauty, romance, and the arts. Dolly Parton was born with the sun conjunct Venus in Capricorn, and she has a fairly familiar Capricornian story at this point. She grew up in a rural part of Tennessee, as she describes, dirt poor, and through her Venusian skills and charms, her songwriting, her voice, her appearance, and her shrewd business moves, she's climbed her way to the top as one of the most honored female musicians in country music. She decided not to let fellow Capricorn Elvis Presley do a cover of her song I Will Always Love You, which ended up being a smart move because she ended up earning millions more in royalties when fellow Sun Venus conjunction in Leo, Whitney Houston, turned it into an epic gospel ballad for the ages in the early 90s. There's a bit more to that story, but we'll leave it at that for now. Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn. Mars is the planet of anger, courage, and action. Capricorn is one of the best signs for Mars to be in, getting a ruthless and indomitable Saturnian edge to its blade. Catherine Switzer was born with the Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn, and she's famous for being the first woman to run in the Boston Marathon. And you have to know the story to kind of get why this is important. Women were not allowed to run in the Boston Marathon back in 1967, and her running coach told her she couldn't do a marathon because she was a, and I quote, fragile woman. Well, Catherine Switzer was a Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn, so obviously she said, fuck that. She snuck into the marathon by signing up with her initials, and an organizer of the marathon literally tried to rip her number off while she was running, which was captured in these kind of notorious photographs and printed in newspapers around the world. So because of her act of courage and defiance, she broke down barriers for women in sports, which is all pretty Marsy. I mean, Marsy for the courage and Marsy because it's in the realm of athleticism. Here's what Catherine Switzer herself said about the incident. I knew if I quit, nobody would ever believe that women had the capability to run 26 plus miles. If I quit, everybody would say it was a publicity stunt. If I quit, it would set women's sports back, way back, instead of forward. If I quit, I'd never run Boston. If I quit, Jock Semple and all those like him would win. My fear and humiliation turned to anger. Which has to be the most Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn statement ever uttered. That was so Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn, I can't even Sun conjunct Mars in Capricorn right now. Sun conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter is the planet of beneficence, wealth, wisdom, and Capricorn is actually considered to be the worst sign for Jupiter to be in, because Jupiter's expansive in an Earth sign ruled by Saturn, which is totally not. And so Ajit Pai was born with the Sun conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn, and he's the current chairman of the FCC, who's recently come under a lot of fire for repealing net neutrality rules which protected consumers and businesses from unscrupulous practices by internet service providers. Basically, he's not on our side as consumers and middle-class people. Now, clearly this guy is certainly a Jupiterian figure. He's very worldly, he's intelligent, he graduated from Harvard, he's got his law degree, and he just happens to be a very Jupiterian figure for the ISPs too, giving them their ultimate Christmas wish. And, you know, he has a sense of humor, I guess. He's the guy mocking 83% of the American public who support net neutrality with a stupid video days after he repealed it by a party line 3-2 vote. So, yeah, pretty funny, I guess. This is definitely an out-of-step Jupiter. You know, this is Jupiter in its worst sign. I wonder what will be happening with him since Pluto is conjoining his Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn in 2018. Sun conjunct Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn is in its element. It's kind of in its home in Capricorn. Someone with the Sun conjunct Saturn in Capricorn is likely to be particularly serious, distinguished, or otherwise a humbled person. And as I talked about in my video lecture, Sunshine, Rainbows, and Daisies, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, I talked about how Saturn's stay in Capricorn tends to bring attention to the issues of crime, law, punishment, incarceration, and it sometimes features the literal construction of notable and notorious prisons. And while I found several examples of CEOs with Sun conjunct Saturn and Capricorn and other celebrities who kind of expressed it in their own way, there was one which was pretty literal in respect to the Saturn and Capricorn crime connection. Poole Butler was born with the Sun conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, and he's a professor at Georgetown University Law School, and he's a prominent expert on the topic of criminal law, specializing in white-collar crime, public corruption, jury nullification, and the role of race in the U.S. justice system. Not much else is known about him personally, but I just thought it was striking that even just the basic facts about him and his professional pursuits and interests spoke so strongly to these mundane associations of Saturn and Capricorn, and he was born with the Sun conjunct Saturn in Capricorn. Sun conjunct Uranus in Capricorn. Uranus is the planet of revolution, of technological disruption, and uncompromising individuality. The unassuming Chris Poole was born with Sun conjunct Uranus in Capricorn, and you probably don't know him, but he founded the website 4chan, which is essentially a black hole of the internet from which the very worst and very best things come. a completely anonymous platform which empowers individuals to express themselves freely, which they do, often grotesquely. This is totally Uranus. Poole has spoken very publicly and passionately about the power of anonymity, and it recognizes how this kind of put himself at odds with tech giants like Facebook and Google, who want to know exactly who you are. Not sure what happened with him because he works for Google now, but let's see what happens with his Saturn return in 2018. Sun conjunct Neptune in Capricorn. Neptune is the planet of mysticism, illusions, and delusions. Tyler Henry was born with the Sun conjunct Neptune in Capricorn, and he is the Hollywood medium, a reality show personality who claims to be a clairvoyant medium and does readings for celebrities and TV audiences. Not every person with the Sun conjunct Neptune thinks they're psychic, although it's funny because other TV psychics also feature Neptune prominently in their charts. For example, James Van Prague has Neptune on the midheaven, John Edward has Neptune rising. The thing with Neptune and psychic phenomena, and I don't really want to say either way that it could or could not exist, but simply to point out that the idea of Neptune is visions, illusions, and delusions, which captures both the idea and belief in psychic phenomena, as well as the common charge that it's a con or otherwise fraudulent, that it's delusion. So in that sense, it fits that, you know, this is a person who is born with the Sun conjunct Neptune in Capricorn, and their identity is very Neptunian in a sense. And like Capricorns, Tyler Henry is quite ambitious. He's only 21 and already has his own TV show. I mean, geez. Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. The oldest people alive with the Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn are 8 years old. So my Sun Pluto examples are going to be from the last time Pluto was in Capricorn back in the 1760s and 1770s. Pluto is a planet of deep transformation and titanic power dynamics. People with the Sun conjunct Pluto tend to be people who will leave a mark, make a big impression in the world. John Baptiste was born with the Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, and he was a hugely influential laissez-faire economist, founder of the first business school in the world, l'École supérieure du commerce de Paris. The study of business and economics is quite Capricornian, as all earth signs are related to material values and money, but Saturn's rulership of Capricorn gives it a greater emphasis on systems and processes, the kind of laws of economics. And this is a guy whose name was literally used for a law of economics, Say's Law of Markets. Notice that Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, when the global economy nearly crashed and the economic status quo was shaken to its core, with economists, bankers, and politicians throwing their hands up at a problem that few of them were able to predict. And then you have things like the rise of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, which was first exchanged on January 3rd, 2009, when the Sun and Pluto were in Capricorn. So there you go. Capricorn and economics. Sun conjunct multiple planets in Capricorn. Sometimes multiple planets can be conjunct the Sun, so you have to kind of combine their interpretations. James L. Jones was born with the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Saturn in Capricorn, with Mercury rising on the ascendant, the planet of communication. And of course, he's known for his deep, rich, authoritative voice, which he uses to voice characters like, only one of the most iconic villains of all time, Darth Vader. So yeah, the weird part though is that despite having this legendary, powerful voice, earlier in his life as a kid he had a stutter that was so bad he was actually mute for several years. Saturn delays. You know, all those planets in Capricorn are being serviced by Saturn, and Saturn likes to take a lot of time to make something worthwhile happen, for something to mature. And this is sort of a common thing with Mercury-Saturn people. They often have like obstacles for speech earlier in life, and then they're able to speak with precision and power and authority later on. If you liked this episode, please give it a like, share it with your Capricorn friends, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you catch my next video by subscribing to my channel, and if you're super awesome, you can get these videos a day early if you support me on Patreon with even just $1. And to all those Capricorns out there this month, happy birthday. I am not throwing away my shot.